Welcome to the Trailblazers. I'm Perry Rarick, your host. The purpose of this interview series is to share with you interesting discussions I have with trailblazing business leaders. They're innovative, thought-provoking, they're experts in their field, they're passionate about the work they do, and they're not afraid to challenge the status quo. My trailblazer guest today is Cindy Henderson. She is the Chief Strategy Officer at Veristat, and she's an important member of the executive leadership team. Veristat is a clinical research organization and consultancy that helps their clients integrate strategic planning, regulatory strategy, and clinical trial execution. They pride themselves on being problem solvers, scientific experts, and regulatory guardians. Three very important facets of this drug development industry. In her role, Cindy leads strategy development and is responsible for the company's growth plans while maintaining a focus on alignment with their mission and vision. And additionally, because that job just isn't big enough, as big as that is, she also is responsible for Veristat's technology infrastructure and is spearheading their artificial intelligence and machine learning initiatives. Really innovative things that are going on there, and we're going to hear a little bit more about that. Cindy has 30 years of experience, 15 plus with Veristat. She brings an ideal blend of commercial leadership and customer acumen necessary to support the challenges of helping drug innovators advance their therapies from discovery and all the way through a very challenging clinical research process. Cindy, welcome to the Trailblazers.
Thank you so much, Perry. Really excited to be here today.
Well, thank you for being with us, Cindy. Thank you for this time. You have a big job. We know you don't have a lot of time, so we're very thankful you're sharing some of that with us. For our audience, sometimes you meet someone for the first time and you immediately recognize that you're speaking to someone that has a lot of wisdom to share. And so that is the way I felt the first time I met Cindy, and we're going to hear a lot of that wisdom today. So, Cindy, you have a fascinating career journey. You began executing and leading clinical trials and managing all the data they generate in what I'll refer, and I'll be dating both of us a little bit. I'm going to refer to that time as the pre-data technology era.
Mhm.
You're an expert at integrating data management into modern clinical trials, and today you're working on employing AI, as I mentioned, and machine learning into clinical trials. Fascinating stuff. At the same time, you also have extensive experience in commercial operations leadership, kind of a rare thing. The marketing, business development, customer success, all of that kind of work. There's so much to hear, and we're going to get started. But first, if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about Veristat and Veristat's role in this complex process of bringing drug therapies to patients?
Yeah, happy to. And thanks again so much for having me. Veristat we're a CRO, yes. But I really think of us much more as a partner to clients along their journey. So we really engage with sponsors early on, helping them strategize on their overall clinical development plan, the design of their trials and their protocols, whether that's engaging in writing the documents or engaging with the regulatory authorities through execution of the clinical trials. And then really the part that I think is very unique to us is we do a lot of work on the end, which is the exciting time when they get towards regulatory approval. So helping them pull together the story of all of their clinical trials and integrated analysis, all of the writing of the regulatory documents, submission to the regulatory authorities. And I'm so proud of the fact that Verisat's been part of getting over 100 new drugs approved for patients worldwide. So that's really the hallmark of who we are, is bringing those drugs to patients.
Awesome. It is so important. It's very inspiring work. We're going to talk more about that. And you mentioned partnership. We're going to get into that. If you look at most, anybody who's offering, providing services to the drug innovators, partnership appears somewhere.
Yeah.
But you speak about it differently, and we're going to get into that a little bit in a little bit later in the interview. So if I Googled like what's the route to becoming a chief strategy officer, I'm going to get 1,000 different answers.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
different routes to that. So how did you go from where you were? As you described your career, you were involved in managing data for clinical trials before anything was automated,
Yes.
and now you're the chief strategy officer. What did that look like for you?
Yes, very interesting. I actually started in the mailroom at a small organization in my college days, and I was very lucky that that organization provided me with opportunities to learn new things. And they taught me how to analyze EKG and blood pressure analysis. That's what that organization did for both clinical and research purposes. From that organization, I went to Parexel, another CRO. I was there for a number of years, and in those days in data management, it was all very manual. We were, for example, there were 10 of us that all started around the same time that had share 4 computers and 1 phone. So it was a very manual process that we were working through. We would get the case report forms, we would have to review them manually. If there were corrections that we needed to make working with the investigational sites, queries were printed on dot matrix printers in the 3-part NCR paper. And we use, different color pens to help us to kind of note the different stages of edits we were making to the pages. It was a very different time. I saw EDC come into play for the first time, electronic data capture. I saw email. I'm really dating myself now, but all these things that we didn't have when we first started, and it made the process it was slower for sure to get the data, correct the data, and get it to that point where our statisticians could do the analysis on it. So those are the very early days. Then I came after Parexel for a number of years. I came to Veristat as the head of data management, a very small company at the time. We were only about 30 people. And again, I think the most important thing that led to my journey to become the chief strategy officer was learning. Veristat gave me the opportunity to learn so many different things. Not only did I get involved in data management, but I was collaborating with the finance organization, IT. Then I made my way into the commercial side of the business, and I led our business development team for a number of years, our sales and marketing organization. And in that really taught me a lot of new things. And it gave me a lot of perspective on the customer's perspective and how they saw things and what their needs were, and making sure we were supporting them on their journey. Um, and, really as Verisat evolved and our needs changed, we realized that someone dedicated to looking at our growth strategies, but also making sure that looking kind of big picture across the whole organization, looking at our operations, our commercial and our business practices, and how all of those can come together for success. So that's really kind of my role is it can be ambiguous at times, which can be challenging at times. But it's really making sure that I'm looking across the organization and working with all of the business leaders and all of our executive team to make sure that we're all driving towards that one vision of supporting our clients, bringing new drugs to patients globally, and growing the company.
What a great journey, and what a perfect blend of roles you had, building one on the other,
Mhm,
to now as the chief strategy officer. So fantastic. I could you offer a brief history lesson
mhm.
of some of the milestones that you experienced on how technology, in the employment of technology has had a big impact on this clinical research, clinical trial process?
Sure. The first one would be the dawn of electronic data capture. Everything used to be paper. A 3-part NCR paper that the were filled out manually at the sites. And that day that we started collecting the data in the system automatically, where I could see as a data manager, I could see the data in not quite real time, but close to real time. I didn't have to wait for the mail. I didn't have to wait for those things to happen. That really gave us a lot of new insights. That really supported groups like the data safety monitoring boards or safety monitoring committees, that they could see the data and what was happening with patients in real time to make sure that, especially in early phase clinical trials, as we're looking at dose escalation trials, for example, we're really monitoring very closely that safety of the patients. So that was really the first, I think, big transformational change in the industry years ago. And then throughout the course of that, we've seen, things from decentralized trials now over the past 10 years or so, I'd say, from remote based monitoring, in home nursing visits, in home health visits, electronic patient reported outcomes. Those have become vitally important in the industry now. The FDA and other regulatory bodies are really looking for the voice of the patient in the clinical trials. So these electronic patient reported outcomes giving us their voice and their information about whether it's diaries that they're filling out or pain scales or other information or tests that they might have to be filling out. It's giving us that direct information in real time to what the patient is thinking. Wearables, that's another big thing that has come into play, and we're seeing used more and more. And now today it's AI, and generative, and generative AI and machine learning, and really seeing how that can adapt and change our industry. I think as folks have seen, the FDA has really started to adapt AI, and just this week, actually, they put out a post talking about their use of AI within the agency for the review of protocols, the review of data coming in from sponsors. And that's really going to transform their work process and allow them, hopefully, to review things much faster and allow things to get through that regulatory process in a much faster time frame.
Thank you. That's a great review of all these things that we now take for granted. I mean, this is
It's
just part of
amazing.
the
Yeah,
landscape. AI is not quite there, but it will be.
it will be.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
incredible. You talked about your role as chief strategy officer at kind of a high level, what you're responsible for. Can you talk a little bit more about that role at Veristat? Because it varies based, on company. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. And the thing that I guess I like about it is that it can be a little bit different every day. So it's never boring. From this week, just to give an example, I was really involved a lot on the commercial side of things, supporting our new pricing tool and how did we want to price things to our sponsors and what does that look like? Supporting our marketing team, we're doing some webinars and how can we tell our story and how can we make sure that our strategy and our partnership with sponsors comes across. So I was working a lot with the marketing team this week. Other weeks, I spend a lot of time directly with our clients. There's one client right now who has an oncology program in radiopharmaceuticals that we are supporting, and I've been engaging with that sponsor to help support the delivery and to get that up and running in a very rapid time frame. Other weeks, it's board meetings, and so it really can vary week to week, which I personally like. But that is something that I think if you're in a role like this, you really have to be flexible and agile. You have to be ready to move at a moment's notice to where a challenge might exist, or a new initiative, and how do we kick that off and support and grow that? So that's one of the things that I find here is you really kind of be ready to jump in and help wherever needed or provide guidance and advice wherever needed.
As you were describing that, flexibility came to mind and you said that, but I was thinking of the mental agility to move through all of those functions and be kind of the person in the room that's expected to weigh in and have an
Mhm.
opinion.
Yes, that is 100% true, and I'm very lucky so far, and knock on wood, that, having been at Veristat for a long time, everybody kinda jokes I'm the Veristat historian a little bit as well, and can share information on our experience or trials that we've worked on. Hopefully, I keep that mental acuity where I can remember things, and I think it helps me draw upon our experiences, and I don't always have the answer, but I hope I can at least ask a smart question and challenge everybody in the room to really think through whatever topic we're tackling at the moment.
Yeah. Wonderful. Just exciting. Uh, you were the first chief strategy
Mhm.
officer at Veristat, so you're the plank holder. What why did Veristat need a chief strategy officer? What was going on in the business?
Yeah, no, it's really amazing to see the evolution that we've had as an organization. When I started with the company, we were only about 30 people. And when I was the head of data management, and over the years, we've done multiple acquisitions, as well as growing organically. And we're now, over 400 people in 13 countries globally. And through the acquisitions in particular and the complexity of bringing multiple companies together, as well as operating across multiple geographies, and then coupled with the changes that we're seeing in the marketplace overall with technology, what we were just talking about in AI, as well as other things, we felt that having someone dedicated to kind of watching the market space, to ensuring that we were bringing, our acquired companies together as one, as well as really kind of watching the technology and how we can see that evolve and grow, and having someone who has the time to dedicate to that. Our I work very, very closely and have to partner very closely with the rest of the executive team. We are a team. And that's a really vitally important aspect here. This is not something that I do on high or do by myself. I have to work very closely with what is our commercial leader, our operational leaders, our financial leaders, our talent and culture, our CEO, obviously. What are we all seeing scientifically across the board? So a lot of times I'm asking questions and challenging us to think about things, but it's very much a team effort, and then, sometimes I'm the person that just has perhaps some time available to work on a particular initiative. So that's where the flexibility comes in. But that's what I love. I love that I get to do so many different things and work with so many different people across our organization. I think I'd be bored otherwise.
So I mentioned that you're passionate, and that really comes through. One of the initiatives is integrating AI into clinical
Mhm.
trials, and you're personally responsible for that at Veristat. So without giving any away trade secrets or anything like that, can you talk about what's going on? And also, where do you think what are the promises of AI, that we haven't quite achieved yet? Where are we gonna be?
Yeah. There's so much still to learn about where it can take us, right? But so we're looking at AI in a couple of different ways. So first, from a business perspective, looking at how it can support us in our commercial efforts, for example, and our sales and marketing teams, helping us just through efficiencies of engaging with our clients. Also, collating our information, our data together, and helping to better search and take all of the data that we have over our 30-year history to better tell our story. So we're using different methods in AI to kind of mine that data, that Veristat data, to help pull it together to tell the story, whether it's in a proposal or some other type of marketing information, for example. That's one way. We're also looking at it though from an operational perspective and how we can gain efficiencies operationally, similar to the things that the FDA is doing. So we're really looking very closely at what the FDA and other regulatory authorities are doing and making sure that we're, um, fast followers, I guess I would say, with them and watching where the space is going. So it's all about efficiency. The key thing is that it's never going to replace the human that comes into play to bring this the scientific and the decision making at the end of the day. We see it as a way to help facilitate the decision making and bring some efficiencies, as I said, to the process, but not to replace the people by any stretch of the imagination.
When I asked that question, I expected the only that you talked about operations and patient data, and you mentioned marketing as well.
Mhm.
And so for you, this is a full
Oh,
court
yes.
press. Yeah, AI is going to you're really integrating it into all of your business.
Yes, that is our goal and objective. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. That's very fascinating. I want to follow up with you at some
Yeah,
point.
me too. And
Yeah,
I
once you
think
get to the
there's
other
so
side.
much promise, as you said, to where AI is going. I think it's very much a watch this space across the industry, and it's constantly evolving. So we'll have to really watch and see how far it can take us. But it's a very exciting space. At the same time, it's one we're cautious about also. We want to make sure we use it in the right places. There are certain places that we would not use it for, that we would expect a human intervention to come into play, as I said, decision making in particular. I think about something like a clinical study report. We would want the conclusions drawn about the data to come from the clinicians, the regulatory strategists, the scientific individuals. Um, Certainly, the collation of the data, maybe some efficiencies in drafting certain things, but you would want the hardcore thinking to come from the scientific experts.
Yeah, certainly. So it's so smart. What a really smart approach. I want to go back to your overall responsibility as the chief strategy officer, and you mentioned you're responsible for aligning vision, the company's vision, strategy, and operations. So that's a that's a big role. So can you talk a little bit about what that means? Like, what do you do? How do you execute that? And at the end of the day, okay, yeah, we're on track. We're doing that.
I think it's, first research, understanding, uh, our information, our data, and here's where my data background comes into play. So I do a lot of analysis on our data, looking at where we've been successful, where perhaps we've been challenged. I collaborate with others. I don't do any of this by myself, just to be very, very clear. But that's one of the things that I can bring to the table is that data background that I have. And so kind of evaluating us and see what has worked or what's not working for us, making recommendations to the executive leadership team, looking at the marketplace and understanding what's going on at the marketplace, talking to our customers. I spearhead as well in the organization. We do a customer satisfaction survey on a quarterly basis, and we just kicked off our Q2 survey. And so I collate that data that comes in, present it to the executive team and the other operational leaders, and what can we learn from what our clients are telling us. And then really just make recommendations to the executive leadership team overall. And then together as a team, we really come up with the final decisions. I'm not the one that's sitting and deciding that by any stretch. It's really much more of analyzing the data, bringing the data forward, making recommendations for everybody to kind of challenge, and then for us to finalize together. Once we all come up with that vision and that plan that we've agreed upon, I'm kind of helping to implement it or execute within the organization, making sure that as we launch the different pieces of it across the different groups, that it all stays aligned and that in particular, where groups need to collaborate, they collaborate. One of the things that's very important to me is that we don't become siloed organizations, right? We don't want commercial working in a vacuum or finance working in a vacuum or any of the operational groups. We want everybody to work together collaboratively because we can all learn pieces of information from each other. So that's one of the things that I try to help remind folks of is, oh, did we talk to finance about that? Oh, do we talk to the quality group about that? And really making sure that we're bringing all those different stakeholders to the table and any of the initiatives that we have. So hopefully we can drive them forward as holistically as possible to success. So they will serve, all facets of the organization. Um, so it's very interesting. As I said, it changes from day to day. But that's what I love about it is that kind of collaborative aspect of it and really kind of just working with everyone together to find the best solution that we can.
Great description of what unity of effort looks like.
Mhm.
That's really really fascinating. Well explained. I've heard you say this. Your CEO. This is on your website. I've heard your CEO say this that you consider yourselves to be thought partners.
Mhm.
What does that mean? And what are some characteristics and features of a good thought partner?
Yes. I almost don't like the term CRO because it sounds like we're just a vendor that you
I'm with
fire,
you. Yeah.
and that's really not what we wanna be.
Yeah.
We really want to be that collaborative partner, and what does that mean to us? It really means open and honest communication, and that means that we're not just gonna say yes to everything. That means we're gonna challenge the status quo. We're gonna ask a lot of questions. We're gonna ask why, because we don't wanna just have the client, ask us something and we just do it blindly without giving it any thought. We really want to understand why something is needed so we make sure they get truly what they need at the end of the day. Are they asking for something for a regulatory submission, or is it for one of their board meetings internally, or for a conference they're going to present at? So making sure we're giving them the right information for the right purpose to achieve their objective. Um, when they're thinking about their study design and we're supporting them early on in our consulting in the study design, we want to challenge the status quo, so to speak, and really try to think outside of the box as to what will work for this patient population, for the regulators. I can tell a brief story. We had one of our CMOs from one of our clients uh, talk to our CEO at a conference. This was a couple of years ago, and he said to him, "We were working with one of your medical writers to help design our protocol, and she gave us 10 suggestions for the protocol, and we only accepted 2 of them. But at the end of the day, because she challenged us and asked those 10 different things, she made us think about it, and at the end, the protocol was better for it." And that's what we want. We want to at least ask the questions, challenge to make sure that it's better at the end of the day as we all come together. So that's kind of what I think about with partnership. Of course, we want to serve the client's needs. Of course, we want to meet, what they need to drive their program forward. And of course, you've had the communication and collaboration, all of those things. But it's also that empowerment to make sure that we are really driving together towards success. The client's program is just as important to us as it is to the client. I have one other brief story I have to tell in that we were working with a sponsor on their ovarian cancer study several years ago. And ovarian cancer at the time, the median survival rate of 9 months. And we unblinded the data and saw the results. And our statistician, shared the results with some folks. And this increased the median survival rate of women from 9 months to 24 months. And I'm telling you, I get emotional just thinking about it. There was not a dry eye in the house when that came out. It's very personal to us. Sorry. But this is what's so important about it is that this is about helping patients, and that's what we wanna bring forward to our clients every day.
What a great story. Thank you for sharing that. That is what it provides purpose. So I was just as you started to say, I what how do you sustain that culture across 400 people? I'm sure that goes a long way of ingraining that DNA
Mhm.
or reminding people of your organizational DNA.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting, ever since COVID, and we were all working in a much more remote world than we used to be. It was a little bit easier when we were all kind of in the offices together, right? But no, some things that we do to really make sure that we're all keeping that front of mind. We do in our office, we have what we refer to, we have a tribute wall in our office that it has the saying on it. It's not just business, it's personal. And it has photographs of family and friends that um, have been afflicted with various diseases or have passed that we're trying to treat to just remind us that's who we're doing it for. But one of the most important things that I think we do is we bring our clients in to talk to us about their program. So we will have company meetings on a regular basis where we ask our clients to come in, talk about their disease, their patient population, their compound, and what they as a company are doing. So this reminds us about the science behind it all, what our clients do, and our part in working with them. So they're not just hearing it from myself and Patrick and the other executives, they're hearing it directly from our clients as well, who are incredibly passionate about what they do. And that becomes infectious to us as well. So I think that's one of the more important things that we do is really hearing from our clients.
Yeah, incredible. Really good. I think I wanna work at Veristat.
Right.
This is great. So such, what you just talked about was so impactful, really, uh, so I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, and it's gonna be hard to transition maybe. How do you communicate that, getting into the nuts and bolts of marketing and business development?
Mhm.
How do you communicate that culture to an external audience?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think one of the things we challenge ourselves with every day. There's a lot of marketing tactics that you can certainly do to ensure that you're trying to get your message across, but and everybody says the same words. I think you said at the very beginning of our talk here. Everybody talks about partnership. All companies have smart people and want to do the right thing, I think, right? So it's how do we differentiate ourselves from when everybody's saying very similar things? Personally, I think it's by telling stories. A couple of the stories that I've just told you, but also, talking with our sponsors maybe about how we've met a particular objective that's similar to what they're trying to achieve. So if they're trying to implement something in a very rapid time frame, how have we done something very similarly? I remember, for example, during our days when Ebola had hit, we worked very, very hard to get studies up and running within a matter of weeks, not months, literally, because we were so concerned about treating that patient population at the time. Same during COVID, getting things up and running very, very quickly. So I find those proof points are really kind of hit at home and give a very concrete and specific example to clients to understand that we've done it in a similar way for another sponsor. We can do it with them again. And that's what I find to be the most effective personally.
It is a very powerful method. Storytelling, of course, some folks are better at. When you describe it though, what I hear is the patient is at the center of your
Yes.
stories. Yeah.
hmm I mean, that's what we're all in this for. I mean, really, that's it at the end of the day. And it can sometimes get lost because we don't see the patients. That's one of the things when you're in the CRO space, we don't see the patients directly. So we have to constantly remind ourselves that that's who we are supporting at the end of the day is to bring these drugs, biologics, devices to the patients to improve their lives or save their lives in some cases. And, what's the most exciting to us is when I can see the fruits of that at the end of the day. There's a compound that we did the marketing application for and helped get it approved with the FDA that I now see the ads on TV for it almost every day. And that's exciting to us to think about, wow, all those patients that are, looking to take that drug to help them, we were a big part of helping to bring to market. So we're incredibly proud of that.
So cool. Really powerful. That is awesome. Uh, Before we wrap up, so most of us who work in this industry or around this industry, like I do, this isn't what we envisioned when we were young. Like, what is this world? It's not something we come in contact with very early in our lives. But what advice would you have for some young folks, maybe college age or early on in their professional careers? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, that's such a great question because I agree with you so much. There aren't college courses for most of the tasks and activities, in this industry. Obviously, you can go to be a statistician, yes, obviously there are courses for things like that, but to be a data manager, there's no, BS in data management out there. So what I think are the most important things to are first just really listen. Really keep your eyes open and your ears open and listen to what's happening out there. Listen to what others are having to say. I think very early on, as I said, I was in the mailroom and I just really listened to what was going on around me. And then I just asked a lot of questions. I really kept that thirst for knowledge throughout my entire career. And today today I still have to learn. I have to learn about AI. I have to learn about the new things that are happening in our marketplace. And I think that is vitally important to never lose that thirst for knowledge and to make sure you're always asking the questions. In addition to that, be adventurous to a certain extent. I never thought, I was in data management. I loved my time in data management. I enjoyed what I was doing, and I never thought I would head into a sales or a commercial space. And I have to give credit to the founder of Veristat, John, and he, came to me and brought that idea to me here, and was something I never thought I would get into. But I thank him so much for that because it opened up a whole new world for me, and it allowed me to engage more with our clients. It allowed me to learn so much about how the sales and marketing, worked. Uh, pricing and marketing metrics and digital media and all those different things that I didn't know beforehand. And so I really enjoyed the opportunity to learn. But I had to be brave enough to take that leap. When he said, "Do you want to do it?" I had to say, "Oh," and I had to take that leap and do it. So be adventurous, be willing to try these things. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back or try something different, but I really think those are two of the most important things that I can really think of is that learning and to be adventurous, and lastly, I guess I would say is to always maintain that sense of collaboration. The minute you start to think that you can do it all on your own, you're gonna be stuck. You've got to be willing to collaborate with others and not just to learn from them, but to work with them to achieve a goal together. And I think that's a big part of what we are about here. And it's something I constantly remind myself here is, you've got to collaborate with others to get stuff done and to move things forward in the right way. So that's my advice, I guess. I hope it works for folks. I think it's worked for me. And, it's an exciting time out there. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for folks coming out of college, out of school right now. And I wish them luck. Just really look out for it and so much that they can do.
Great advice, Cindy. Thank you for sharing that and for the encouragement as well. You do it in a way to encourage. That's wonderful. My guest today has been Cindy Henderson. She is the Chief Strategy Officer at Veristat. Her story from the mailroom to the boardroom as as on the executive leadership team. What a story. Cindy, how can our listeners contact you and the other folks at Veristat?
Yeah, we'd love to talk to anybody. You can definitely reach out to me. Our website, there's a forms on there, but or directly write to me, cindy.henderson@veristat.com. Love to talk at any time.
Awesome. Cindy, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Perry. I really enjoyed it.